Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta. Saturday night, 26th of May. Glad to be here. Missed my show last night. Caught a bit of a cold or got allergies or something, but wasn't feeling well and missed my show. And I thought, yeah, I'll do a show tonight. I spent a lot of the day sitting around just posting different things on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, and some of my old shows and information about what I've been doing over the last 3 years or so, 4 years, regarding child abuse prevention and public speaking and whatnot. And just thank everybody for taking the time to tune into all of my shows. I have over 1,000 shows completed, and a lot of people who still tune in, and I really appreciate it. It's hard to listen to this stuff. It's hard to be in my shoes. It's hard to deal with child abuse issues, and I know that because of what I do and because I've been out here working with everybody else to make noise as much as possible about this issue, I happen to be acquainted with a lot of child abuse prevention public advocates, who speak out against child abuse and who really stand up for justice and, standing up to protect children and the rights of the child. And so I see a lot of their stuff, and I, throughout the course of any day, can run across any number of posts and whatnot on all the different social networks that I have. And it's a job, and nobody wants to do it. It's not fun. It's not fun being abused. It's not fun having to grow up, in our shoes. Where society wants to turn a blind eye, and yet here we are. The survivors who actually made it. There's so many children who die and who will never get the opportunity to ever know what it's like to live this long in someone's shoes after living a life of having to deal with being abused as a child, and then coming through with serious issues. Many times survivors will have so many issues that they just can't function in life, and I've been really blessed because I'm able to keep going, for whatever reason. Something inside me just allows me to go through my day-to-day life. I can work, and I can maintain my life outside my public life quite well. My own personal relationships I've been able to manage quite well. It's a blessing, really, because so many people that I know who have survived abuse and in any type of abusive relationship, whether it be domestic violence or child abuse, have such a hard time, because the aftermath of abuse is horrifying. It's completely devastating. And what people will say, well, yes, we can survive. We can not only survive, but we can learn to really enjoy life and to, there's the word thrive in there, survive and thrive, right? But it's true. It's true. We can learn to find joy in life and to eventually, hopefully, make peace and to, will we ever be able to erase our past? No. Will we ever be able to change the past? No, but we can certainly learn how to live, And that was my goal many years ago, before I even started my healing journey, was to be able to just function as an adult after coming through being abused as a child and through my teens all the way up until I was about 18, when my mother, who needed my help and my protection, who was my main abuser, finally decided that she better start treating me better so that I would stay and actually try to help her and to protect her from my dad, which I did. And so things got a little bit better, but all the way through to my teens, 18 years old, our relationship was just horrible. I talked about all of it there on all of my shows, one child abuse survivor to another, and many of these shows speaking out against child abuse. And it's tough. It's tough because my personality was formed way back when the abuse began, which was before I was born. So I was born into abuse. And so for me to learn how to get along in life, I really had to look at other examples around me of people, basically were my teachers, who I felt were decent, moral people with values and a value system, and choosing what's right and choosing the good instead of the bad. Whereas some people can't do that. Two of my brothers killed themselves. They could never find anything good. They just couldn't find it. Even though they had experienced some good things, people had tried to help them out when they were on their own, living on the streets. There were groups of people that I personally didn't know about, but had heard that were trying to help them to clean up their lives and straighten up their lives, not together but separately. My two brothers were not on the streets together, hanging out together. This was years apart, and they were both doing their own thing, but they were both on a path of destruction due to the abuse that they suffered. See, this is the thing. This is why I keep speaking out about this and why I keep doing what I'm doing. Because I know, for myself, I've survived it. I didn't come through unscathed, and I certainly have my own set of issues. But I'm maintaining. I'm able to maintain, whereas they were not able to maintain. They lived a horrible life after being abused as children all the way through into their teen years, when they eventually moved on to their own lives, could not figure out how to be an adult. They could not figure out how to do it because we were not shown anything remotely human in our childhood. We were not shown any kind of proper relationship or how to get through things, how to deal with things, how to cope, how to maintain. And so therefore, they didn't look around for examples. They didn't look around for what they could get a hold of to use as an example to say, hey, look at what this person's doing, or look at what these people are doing. It seems to be working for them. I think I better start modeling some of this stuff, and start working through some of this stuff. And they had help. They were both different times involved in some criminal activities which were nonviolent, but they were still criminal activities nonetheless. They were both arrested, and they both did prison time. And they had opportunities within that prison system to get help, and they just turned everything down. They were so far gone, and this is why I do what I'm doing, to speak out against this stuff. A Life of Death and Redemption is my book that I wrote. Started out as a blog way back 2007, and then I had it at the not request, but just advice of a friend, author friend, Donna Shear, that I should be published. And so I published it, but it's hard to find a publisher. I wanted to get it out there and available for people. And it's a book full of abuse, full of violence. Nobody wants to read it because nobody wants to publish it, really, because it's not fiction. See, if it was fiction, they'd be all over it, because it'd be just another series of fiction books about abuse, which people love to read if it's fiction. But because it's real, it's hard to publish. It's kind of sad, but that's just the way it is. And so I publish my stuff on Lulu, and I don't want the money for any of my books that are there. I just want to donate the money, which is what I've done, to charities that are helping prevent child abuse. But the issue is I wrote that book for not just for myself, not just for, look at me, poor me. It wasn't out of to gain sympathy at all, actually. It was to allow my voice to be heard on behalf of my family, and especially my siblings who died, due to the abuse so many years later. So they weren't killed as children, but they were. And they weren't physically killed as children, even though they could have been. My parents were brought up on charges, child abuse charges. Both of my parents were at the same time hauled into court, busted, because my brother had gone to school. He was beaten up, and my dad had beaten him up, and my mom put him in a turtleneck to send him to school, and the authorities got involved. So my parents had to go to court. They almost lost us, and they didn't follow through with any of the stuff that they were supposed to do, like counseling for the family, counseling for the kids. But the social workers would come around for a while, and then after that they were gone, and then we moved to another country. We moved to Canada. So they lost, all contact through there. But the issue, this was way back in the 60s and early 70s, when child abuse prevention really wasn't even really an issue. Nobody cared. Just kill your kids, whatever. Pretty sad, but it's true. And even today, it's still happening. It's 2013. People are walking away from, with a slap on the wrist. Oh, you shouldn't have killed your kids, boy. That's too bad. Guess we'll just have to slap you on the wrist and send you off, and hope you don't do it again. This is the garbage that we're facing, and the sad thing is that people don't take accountability for it. Abusers don't, because there's got to be something wrong with someone who would do these horrible, heinous things to children, and that's why I speak out. There is something wrong with people who would hurt a child on purpose and then hurt them again and again and again and possibly even kill that child. There's something wrong with them. There's got to be something mentally wrong with them. Why are they allowed to walk free in society? I don't know. That's a really good question. But it's really sad. And they all think that they're not going to face a coming judgment, but they are. They may get away with it here on this earth, but there's a coming judgment. And, that's just the way it is. So it's really unfortunate, Like my two brothers were they had a horrible life growing up as children. Then they turned to drugs, which I did too. And they had this horrible situation as adults, and then they died in their 30s, both of them, not at the same time. They were, they died separately, many years apart, but they both basically killed themselves. One did kill himself, it was suicide, and the other one died of a drug overdose a few years later. So, what do you do about that? No justice. There was no justice. My parents walked free. They had to go to court. They were hauled up on charges. That was about it. No, they got to continue to abuse us all they wanted to. And then, at the end of it, they got to look like these poor, sad old people whose children were just so horrible that caused them so much grief. When it was my parents' fault. It was my parents' fault that the people don't want to agree with this. But this is why I speak out. Because there's a lot of people that say, oh, no, it doesn't matter what the parents do to a child. It's the child's resiliency and all this other garbage that keeps the child from doing wrong and going wrong later in life. That is just not true. It's bogus. You beat a child. You run down a child. You make a child feel worthless. You kick a child around enough, and not only physically, but emotionally, psychologically, even sexually. And then some will come through and some will make it, but they will not come out unscathed. They will not come out without problems. You cannot do that to a child consistently and not have problems later on of some type. They may not manifest in drug use and crime, but they will manifest somewhere. Those problems. So it's absolutely ridiculous that people get away with this stuff, and they do. My parents did. And even today, people that know, because my dad's still living. I mean, he's in his 90s. He's old. But the thing is people that meet him think, oh, what a nice old man, and they have no idea what he did. They have no clue what kind of a person he was to his wife. First of all, he treated her like garbage, and they have no idea what he was like to his sons, who he treated like garbage. They have no idea what he was like to my oldest sister, who he treated like garbage. They have no idea. They have no idea what he did to me, to my other sister. He treated us all like garbage. And yet, today he's a 90-year-old man and he's walking around on the earth, and everybody's just like, oh, he's such a nice old man. I know this is what they think of him because that's how he presents himself, as this godly Christian man who loves God and who is just such a good person. He would never take responsibility for causing, which I believe he and my mother both shared the responsibility of killing my two brothers. They took their own lives, but my parents killed them many years before, and when they were children, when they were young. My parents killed me when I was young. The two of them together killed me, not physically, even though they tried. They killed my spirit. They killed my very being. So I was a walking shell, and that's exactly what happened to my brothers. And so, I speak out against this stuff because it means something to me to be a voice for those whose voices are silenced, whose voices will never be heard, those who will, for whatever reason, cannot speak out because their abuser is still living and they fear for their lives. I mean, I speak out for children who were killed and murdered, whose voices are silenced, and for those who would never speak out of fear or just out of shame or out of just not wanting anybody to know, carrying the burden themselves, And it's a sad thing, that this is going on and on and on and on. Because for every headline out there, every headline that we see out there, every day there'll be headlines, a child being killed, children in the hospital, children being removed from their homes because of abuse. Mostly it's a family member. It's almost always a family member. If you look at the stats, it's at least 90%, if not more, 90 to 95% family member or somebody that the child knows and is very close to. Somebody who has access to the child. I mean, where are the children? That's who has access to the child. That's who's abusing children. It's generally the family or somebody the family knows or someone the child is around all the time. So whether it's daycare or, babysitter, grandparents, parents, siblings, it's somebody who has access to the child. And this stuff, we see these headlines rolling through, and there's just a few, you just see one here, you see one there. But that's just a small representation of how many children are being abused every day. It's a very small representation. It's usually the ones that are like murdered, like killed, like where the story goes really public, really fast, and the news crews are around. See, nobody's around for most of this abuse. There's no news cameras around most of the abuse that's taking place against children worldwide. Children are being abused everywhere around the world right now. There's no cameras there. There's no police there. There's just the abuser abusing the child, and that child's either going to die or they're going to survive the night. They're going to survive another few days. They'll survive another month, or maybe they'll survive for the rest of their lives, but they will have to pick up the pieces at some point. And what is it about our society that just says, oh, well, not my problem? It is our problem. It's all of our problem. And we, as a society, need to fix this. Like, this is absolutely unacceptable, and it's not okay. And where is it, in our society that people feel that they have the right to say that it doesn't matter? Because every human life matters. That's why, on my show page, I have, speaking out against child abuse, but really it's about human rights, And every human being matters. Every child matters. How can we say it doesn't matter that these people are killing their children? It does matter. It matters because that child or those children have no protection. Zero. Zip. They have rights. But who's going to stand up for them? They have rights. They have the right to life. Who's going to stand up for that right to life for that child? They have a right to a good life, to a healthy life, to a wholesome life, full of, they have the right to have an enjoyable life, where their needs are met, health care provided, education. They have the right to the government. You check out the list of child rights. They actually have a couple more rights than adults have. And, it's who's upholding these rights? Well, it's the abusive people who are abusing them, whoever it is. They're not going to uphold those rights. They're the ones that are tearing down that child or those children. So my parents didn't look at it like that. My mother, when she was beating on me, would tell me, I have the right to kill you. As she was shoving me against the wall and beating on me, she'd be like, I can kill you. I could kill you right now. That's my right. I brought you in this world. I can take you out. That was her attitude. And I used to tell her, go ahead and kill me. I don't care. Go ahead and kill me. I don't care. You've already killed me. I'm already dead. I'm just a walking shell. You go right ahead. I was hoping she would kill me, actually. After so many years of being beaten and abused and sexually abused, I was hoping and praying she would kill me. Because I didn't want to have to keep going on through this. And so when she would say stuff like that, I'd be like, go ahead. I'm already dead anyway. Which would infuriate her more. And, I didn't care. I was like, no, you need to hear the truth. And so did the rest of the world. But my mother, when she went to her grave, felt like a victim, very much a victim. She was a victim. But the issue is that she was a victim by choice. She stayed in an abusive marriage and allowed this man to treat her this way, her husband, my dad, and had the opportunity to get out. She didn't feel she had the opportunity to get out. She was abused as a child. She was abused as an adult. She married this man and went right from one abusive situation right into another. She didn't feel like she had any rights. She was so psychologically screwed. So people could say, well, could she have possibly been responsible for the abuse? You bet she is. You bet she was. Because she knew what she was doing. She knew what she was doing. She wasn't out of her right mind when she was abusing me or anybody else in the family. She knew what she was doing. And, you know, at the end, when she on her deathbed, you know, she's such a victim. You know, oh, poor me. I tried to be a good mother. You know, it's like, this is how people are. This is how abusers are. They think that it's all about, they think that their rights have been violated when they've actually killed the child. And then they have to go to jail, they have to go to prison because maybe they've been brought up on charges and busted, which would be great. Half the time they're not, but, you know, when it happens, it's wonderful. And they go and they do some time, and then they feel that they're the victim. They don't care that they've just murdered their child or another child, somebody else's child. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. It's all about them. My rights have been taken away. What about that child's right? What about that child's right to life? You know? And I mean, I do a lot of speaking out against, you know, those who kill children, but I'm talking about children who are abused and not killed and have to live and grow up as myself and all these other survivors out here, these billions of survivors, and sit here and have to deal with the aftermath of being abused. The pain and the anguish and the torture. And it's like, you know, where was my rights? My rights were completely taken away. My mother knew I was being sexually abused, did nothing about it. Did absolutely nothing about it. And she didn't care. Because she was being sexually abused by my dad. She was being raped, marital rape. She didn't care. She was like, oh, well, I'm being abused, you're abused, whatever. You deal with it. Where were my rights? I didn't have any rights. But the thing is I did. My parents should have been brought up before the Hague, you know, before the international community, you know, committee for crimes against children. And, you know, that's what I think about all abusers. All people who abuse children and abuse anybody, really, as far as I'm concerned, it should be brought up in the highest court, because they're violating human rights. They're violating the human right to life, to a good life, to a life free of abuse. Well, those rights don't mean anything on that piece of paper unless we uphold them. That's what I'm getting at here tonight. You know, those rights don't mean a thing unless we actually uphold them and they become tangible and physical, a real thing, not just words on paper, but a real thing where, you know what, yeah, we're going to protect these children, we're going to protect the rights of the child. So, you know, why is child abuse allowed to happen? Because children are being abused and no one's talking and no one's saying anything, and even when they do, and their situation is escalated to the police or social services, then what do you do with the child? They go through the system, in and out of foster care, in and out of foster homes, children's homes, possibly more abuse there quite often, maybe not in every situation, but in a lot of them, just more abuse on top of more abuse. And what's wrong with our society? What's wrong with these sick individuals who would do this stuff to children? This is what I want to know. You know, I mean, I watched the destruction of my family, and the attitude that my sick parents had towards their children and towards each other, and then some of my other siblings married abusive men, and watched some of their stupid, sick attitudes towards their children and their family. This just goes on and on and on and on. You know, and it's really frustrating. Because if you don't drown your sorrows in alcohol as a survivor of abuse, or you don't drown your sorrows in some type of drug, even whether it's legal or not, prescription or not, you know, then you're wide awake to the reality of what happened and what's going on and what is really going on, and why child abuse is allowed to continue, because our society is very sick. That's why. Otherwise, this stuff wouldn't be happening. No one in their right mind would hurt a child on purpose. No one in their right mind would ever do that. No one in their right mind would ever hurt anybody on purpose. No, they wouldn't. We live in a very ill society, and it's always been like this, and it will always be like this. But that's why I think we need tougher penalties. We need stronger, tougher laws. I don't have time to go and prepare to be a lawyer. I really don't. My days are pretty much numbered here. I don't have time to go grab a university degree and get all involved in all that. But I can't. But I have a voice, and so do you. I have eyes. I can watch out for the children around me. I don't have any children around me. I don't have children because I was sexually abused as a child, so I can't have children. I lost my baby halfway through, and I was not able to have children, and they told me it was a miracle I even got pregnant in the first place. So no children for me. That's okay. I have a voice. I can speak out, and I can stand up for all the children all around the world, and so can you. That doesn't require any special degree. What that requires is an ounce of care in our hearts, enough to say, man, this is wrong. Like, this is really wrong. You see a child being abused, you do something about it. You don't just go, oh, well, it's not my business. What if it's not true and they're not being abused? They'll be removed from their home. I doubt it. They're not even taking children out that should be removed from their homes. We should have been removed from our homes. All of my siblings would agree with that. And they did, actually. We were not removed, and they won't half the time remove the child, and then the children are killed. And then if they don't remove the child, then, maybe they're not killed, but maybe they are killed, which is what I was talking about earlier. The fact that my parents killed us. Even though they didn't physically kill us, they killed us a long, long, long time ago. And so, don't let that happen to any child around you. Whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, whatever it is, do not allow that to happen to children around you. If you have children in your life, you watch out for them, you make sure that they're not being abused, you do the right thing, and you step up to the plate. And because abusers aren't going to do the right thing by their children, and other abusers aren't going to do right by other people's children. People that want to get a hold of other people's children and use them sexually or whatever, they're not going to do the right thing. And neither are these abusive parents who everybody feels sorry for. I don't know why people feel sorry for abusive parents, because it's the children that you need to feel sorry for. But people don't have a relationship with those children because adults don't have relationships with children. They don't have the ability to connect. They connect with other adults. Children connect with children. Adults connect with adults. And so the adult has a hard time understanding, gee, I guess maybe we should have some sympathy and empathy and care and concern for the children instead of these abusive, insane, psychologically ill parents who are abusing their children, right? I mean, people care a lot about the abusers. When they have to go to jail, they're like, oh, Grandpa so-and-so or Uncle so-and-so had to go to jail. Isn't that too bad? But they don't care about the kid. I can't imagine. It's like, it freaks me out because I know. Like, my family feels the same way. My family who was abused, my siblings, there's only a couple of us left, but they don't care about child abuse. As a matter of fact, they think it's okay to do these things to children. They think it's fine to hurt a child. They think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, that's a sickness. It's an illness in this society, and it's got to stop. It's got to change. We have to change it. And we have to raise our voices. If nobody's talking about this, if nobody's writing about this, if nobody's getting the word out, nobody's spreading this stuff around, it's allowed to continue on behind closed doors or even out in the front yard, like my mother used to beat my ass out in the front yard. And, nobody cared, Nobody cared. People aren't necessarily all that sneaky about it. It's allowed to continue on because no one will say anything. No one will stand up. Do the right thing. Stand up for the rights of the child. You know of a child who's being abused. If you don't get help for that child, you're just as guilty as the person who's abused them, as far as I'm concerned, because you're allowing it to happen and you're not doing the right thing. Because the abusers aren't going to do the right thing. I hope everybody knows this. Abusers who maim and torture and kill their children aren't going to do right by children. So where is our thought process in thinking that, I don't want to intervene because, it's like, no, because the abusers aren't going to intervene. They're not going to get their child help. They're the ones that are causing that child to either to die or to be in the hospital because of the abuse. We have to do the right thing and speak out against this stuff and stand up for the rights of the child, right? Well, take care, everybody, until next time, and I should be back on my shows next week as scheduled, and thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.